Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're breaking down a truly foundational piece of source material that tackles the ultimate human pursuit, the blueprint for wealth and happiness. But hey, before you tune out thinking this is just another generic financial guide, let me stop you right there. The core lesson we're exploring today is a massive, absolute game changer of a paradigm shift. The primary thesis we're going to dissect is this. If you want to be wealthy and happy for the rest of your life, you have to learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. I know it's a really bold claim, but as we break down the logic step by step today, you'll see exactly how transformative this framework really is. Let's get started. So, I want to start off by posing a little thought experiment that completely shatters a very common illusion. What do you think really happens if someone just hands you $1 million? Most of us naturally think that sudden wealth is the ultimate fix for all our problems. But, the data and experience shared in our source material reveal a pretty harsh reality. Unless your personal development actually grows to match that new income, it will almost always shrink right back down to where you currently are. Life just has a strange, undeniable way of correcting imbalances like that. Which brings us to this brilliant, honestly kind of brutal quote from the text. Best you become a millionaire quickly. Otherwise, sure enough, it'll disappear. The insight here is absolutely fascinating. The author points out that if you took all the money in the entire world right now and divided it up completely equally among everyone on Earth, well, it wouldn't take long for all of that money to end up right back in the exact same pockets it came from. The wealth always eventually flows back to the people who have actually developed the mindset and the skills to handle it. Okay, let's dive into this because this right here is the core paradigm shift. Most people pursue success, right? Going out, chasing it down, trying to grab it. But the most highly successful people, they attract success by working on themselves. The source argues that true happiness and lasting wealth aren't contained in what you get. They are entirely contained in what you become. Success is quite literally something you attract by the person you transform into through your own personal development. So, how do we actually become that person? Well, here is our highly structured blueprint for today. Step 1, find the ideas. Step 2, go to work. Step 3, respect the system. And finally, the tomorrow challenge. Let's jump right into the first phase. Step 1, find the ideas. Because look, if you want to be wealthy and happy, you have to actively study wealth and happiness. It's that simple. A lack of money isn't the real problem here. A lack of ideas is. To hunt for those life-changing ideas, the text outlines 3 specific methods. Read, listen, and observe. But wait, before we break these down, there is a completely crucial prerequisite mentioned in the source: get a journal. Seriously, when you find an idea that works, you need to write it down. You absolutely cannot treat your head like a filing cabinet. Putting it in a journal allows for repetition. By going over and over the ideas, they eventually take root, and sure enough, they start showing up in your lifestyle and your bank account. Now let's look at the first method for finding ideas: reading. 30, 30 minutes a day. The source notes that all highly successful people share this relentless curiosity that drives them to read constantly, because they understand that standard education will only ever get you standard results. If you want to transcend standard results, you must become self-educated. One single book could literally save you 5 years of painful trial and error. So the actionable advice here is strict. Dedicate exactly 30 minutes every single day to reading something positive, challenging, instructional, or inspirational. No excuses. Now, what's really interesting here is the second method: listening. You might assume you should only listen to successful people, right? But you can actually learn from both sides of the spectrum. You can learn from the negative by finding out exactly what unsuccessful people read and do, and then simply making sure you don't do those things. But of course, you absolutely must also learn from the positive. You need to get around successful people, listen to what they say, and pay incredibly close attention to exactly how they say it. And that leads to a fantastic piece of advice from the text, summed up perfectly in this quote. Poor people don't usually take rich people out to dinner. The usual logic goes, hey, he's rich, let him buy his own dinner. But the source argues this is completely backwards.
If you aren't doing well, one of the smartest investments you can possibly make is to find someone who is doing well and offer to buy them a meal. Spend 60, 80, actually spend $800 on a full 9-course meal if you have to. Because if you get a highly successful person to talk for 2 hours, they are liable to drop ideas right into your lap that could completely multiply your income.
The third method to find ideas is to observe. Just watch. The premise here is really simple, but incredibly powerful. Success leaves clues. People who do well do certain things over and over again. The text uses a funny but actually very serious example. If you see a guy making $10,000 a month, watch him closely. Watch how he shakes hands. If he has a funny little walk, copy the walk. As the source jokes, you might not have the money yet, but at least you have the walk. It's got to start somewhere, right? The whole point is to be a careful, unusual observer of what is actually working for others.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate goal of observation: developing insight. The text defines sight as just seeing with your eyes, to see things. But insight is seeing with your mind, to see answers. You've got to put both your eyes and your mind to work. The absolute best advice for developing this insight is to relentlessly pay attention. Wherever you are, be completely there. Don't let valuable clues pass you by just because you weren't truly observing your environment. Step 2. Go to work. Let's move to and see how this builds, because now we have to bridge that massive gap between simply finding these great ideas and actually taking physical action. But how in the world do you build that kind of life-changing discipline? Well, the source provides an incredibly practical answer. You start with the little disciplines. You cannot expect to handle the massive, heavy challenges in life if you haven't built up your muscles first. You build that muscle and you get that practice by tackling small, everyday disciplines. Make a list of all the little things you know you can do right now and get right on them. Handle the small stuff so when life hands you the big challenges, you are already strong enough to carry them. Because if you don't take action, you fall into a very, very dangerous trap. If your learning only ever leads to knowledge, the text warns that you'll just become a fool. But if your learning leads to action, that is how you become wealthy. And it's super important to clarify, as the source does, that wealth here is not just about money. Money is actually one of the least of all values. There are people with vast amounts of cash who are spiritually and personally totally bankrupt. True wealth is the result of applying ideas through action to improve literally every dimension of your life. Now, driving this action obviously requires motivation, but the text is totally explicit here. Self-motivation is really the only kind of motivation there is. You can't hand the keys of your motivation over to someone else. You can't just sit around waiting for somebody else to come by and inspire you or turn you on to life. I mean, what if they never show up? You must have a better plan for your own life. You have to be the one who consistently generates the drive to take action on the ideas you found. Step 3, respect the system. Think of this as a set of vital, ethical guardrails for your entire blueprint once you figure out how things work. So the crucial point is this: find out how the system works, work the system, but do not try to beat it. The source warns that some folks learn just enough to start looking for shortcuts. They start slicing it thin, shading the truth, cutting corners, and looking for cheap answers. The text is totally unflinching here. If you fall for that, you will wind up with a cheap life. Even if doing it the right way takes a little bit longer, just do it right. Never, ever compromise with what is right just for a faster result. And that brings us to the Tomorrow Challenge, the final step. It is time to start utilizing the remarkable human gifts waiting deep inside of you. You never have to be the same again after today. I'll leave you with the exact question the source poses to close out our explainer today. What are you going to do starting tomorrow that will actually make a difference? Because the math on this is undeniable. If you do nothing starting tomorrow, everything will stay exactly the same. You can easily guess what your next 5 years will look like. They will look exactly like your last 5 years unless you make the choice to change. It's choice time. You can do whatever you want. But isn't it incredible to know that on any day you wish, you can change your whole life? Start tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next explainer.